how you can get more rentals by using a low doc mortgage for cash out refinances. Now this is for those people who already have existing properties with equity in it. Equity is pretty much the difference between the appraised value and the loan amount. So let me give you a quick formula before I move any further of how to calculate the amount of money you can pull out for a cash out refinance. Let's say you had a property worth $100,000. That's the appraised value. Now let's say you have a loan, a mortgage amount of $60,000, $60,000. This is how you calculate the cash out refinance using this formula. You'll take the appraised value, $100,000 times 80%. This is for investment mortgages. They all use that 80% metric. $100,000 times 80% equals $80,000. Now you subtract the mortgage loan amount that you owe. So you take that $80,000 minus $60,000, and that gives you a grand total of $20,000, excluding closing costs and other fees associated with it. Of course, the mortgage lender got to get paid for doing a refinance, but let's just keep the math easy, $20,000. So most people think it's the opposite. They think, oh, the property's worth $100,000. I have a mortgage amount of $60,000. I have $40,000 I can pull out. You do not. In that scenario, you have $20,000. So let's get into it. So I had a student I was coaching. And this student, he wanted to buy more rental properties, but he had existing properties with equity. He had several properties that he owned free and clear. Congrats to him. The downside is this: when you're dealing with residential mortgage lenders, unfortunately, they have strict requirements. They have something that's called a reserve requirement, meaning they want 6 months of operating expenses in reserves and savings for each property you own. So that's why I love multifamily properties, because most of those lenders don't have those reserve requirements. But being that he had residential properties, unfortunately he had to stick to that requirement by going the conventional mortgage route. So unfortunately, he didn't have 6 months reserves for each property. As a result, he couldn't get access to all that built-in equity that he had. He only had 2 options available. Number 1 option, sell it. He could sell his cash flowing rental properties and cash out, but also have to pay capital gains. He didn't want to do that. But the second option was much better. He can do what's called a cash out refinance using a low doc mortgage. With low doc mortgages, they do not have reserve requirements. Plus, they're very lenient in regard to the number or the amount of documentation you have to bring to the table. That's why it's called low doc. Typically, they want to just see very few documentation. They want to see information about the property, maybe your tax returns, that's about it. But when you're dealing with a conventional mortgage, they want to see the past 2 to 3 years of tax returns, 1099s, W-2s, bank statements, pay stubs, the whole 9 yards. So for this student's case, he didn't have all the documentation and he didn't meet reserve requirements. But he did have property with equity. So he moved forward with a low doc mortgage and he pulled that cash out, and now he's able to use that cash to acquire a 5-unit apartment building, which I helped him get under contract out of state, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Because the student lives in New York and he realized the price points of properties are way too high in New York, and said, hey, I like to invest out of state where I can maximize my returns, get more bang for my buck, in other words. So that's how you do it, my friend. You always want to build equity in your properties. You can build equity by forcing appreciation, buying them with built-in equity. And you want to get leverage. You want to leverage that equity by doing a cash out refinance. And if you're in a situation in which, hey, Juan Pablo, I don't meet the reserve requirements and I don't have full documentation as you stated, then by all means, my friend, you can still tap into that equity, but you have to go the low doc mortgage route. So hopefully that was beneficial to you. As always, guys, this is to your success. And if you have any questions about how you can qualify for a low doc mortgage, not just for refinance purposes, but also to acquire properties, then book a call. Take care.